I am Vero, and you're watching Modern Immigrant. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. As always, we're really happy and really excited to be here, sharing an immigration story that's going to inspire you, that's going to motivate you, and that's going to teach you something as well. Today, Abiodun is here with us. She's the founder of the ImmiGreat Life. And if you follow us on Instagram, you have probably heard about the ImmiGreat Life because I have done a live events with her and I've been sharing also a lot of her content because I admire the work that she's doing. The ImmiGreat Life is a platform that is celebrating the wins and also highlighting the struggles of first generation and second generation immigrants that have an African background. With Abiodun, we learn what have been some of the struggles that as an African immigrant she has faced arriving to the USA. She arrived when she was already in her 20s. She already had tons of experience. She already had a job. She already has stability back in Africa. So arriving to the USA, it was hard to adapt and find that stability again. We also talk about things like workplace bias, the struggles that she had with her own name, and the things that people have been telling her that just show a lot of lack of information around her country of origin and her background. So I learned a lot from this interview. It also inspired me, and we talk about the importance in how we can move from survival mode to thriving mode. She gave us at the end of the interview just such an amazing advice that I think we can all start putting in practice in our lives. So thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get all the information about when are the episodes released. Also, you can follow us at Modern Immigrant and our website, modernimmigrant.net, for all other information, podcast related, and also all of the other projects that we're doing. So thank you one more time for being here. Enjoy this conversation and don't forget to share it if it was helpful. Also, if you leave in the comments, what do you prefer about this interview? What was your favorite part? What topics would you like me to talk about in future interviews? That will be really helpful too. So thank you so much one more time and enjoy. Bye. And I'm so excited to be bringing you another episode of Modern Immigrant. Today we have a really special guest. Abiodun is here with us today from the ImmiGreat Life, and I'm really excited to get to know you. So welcome to Modern Immigrant.
Thank you so much for having me, Vera. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. The same. The feeling is mutual. And as I always say to my guests, I love starting by asking, when did your immigration journey started, or what's your story with immigration, so we can start getting to know you?
Okay, so the entirety of my immigrant journey started, long before I even got here, because my mom, ever since before I was born, she was always a nurse.
Okay.
So she had, she'd been in all kinds of like the facets of nursing, public health, psych, just different. So I would say my immigrant journey started in the 90s, because that was when she started like the process of, okay, I'm going to migrate one day and then I'm going to take my family with me in the 90s. So I didn't move here until 2010.
Okay. So that took several years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in I think 5 days, it will be 11 years.
Wow.
Since I've moved to the States, to the United States where I live. So yeah, that's the story. My mom, he had gone from like from the first cater nursing school to become a chief nursing officer, and thought, I want to do nursing somewhere else, and I want to do nursing somewhere that is considered a first world country. I hear nurses are treated better. I hear things are different, and I want to see what that's like. So that was my mom, right? And that's how I'm here.
And from where to where? I don't know if you told us. Where were you?
Okay, I was born and raised in Nigeria.
Okay.
I'm Nigerian. And of course, Nigeria is a country that has a ton of tribes in it. But my parents happen to be from the very same tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you then when you first arrived to the US?
Okay, so just ask me how old I am then. I was 24.
Okay.
I think 24, yeah.
How was that? And I asked the age just
No, I'm just kidding.
just for people to like
just
get
go
an
ahead,
idea. To get an idea on like immigrating is so different depending on that stage where you're at, right? Like
Yes,
you're a
so
kid,
true.
if you're a teenager, if you're an adult. I immigrated similar as you, as at my 24
Yeah.
was when I arrived here. And it was 8 years recently. So I can maybe have an idea, but I would love to hear from you. How was that?
Yeah.
Because a big chunk of your life happened in Nigeria, and then arriving to the US, it can be like, what?
Okay, so like you said, the immigrant story has has similar patterns in a way, but they're always very unique. So moving here when I was 24, it meant I was done with college. I had worked in banking. I had worked in human resources. I was working in TV and entertainment when I moved here. So I was already pretty formed in what I thought I knew. I thought, okay, this is what life is, and I know it, and I want to ride like this. And of course, when you migrate to another country, it's like, and well, it also depends on who's guiding you when you migrate. So if they tell you, take this path or walk along this path, it will help you, like a coach.
Okay.
It depends on who's coaching you. If they're telling you, oh, all of that stuff you've done before, all of that means nothing, you have to start from scratch, it's a different, you will have a different experience. But if they tell you, you know what, you've done some stuff, let's build on that, it's a different experience too.
So interesting that you're talking about the guidance, because I don't think we have ever touched on that. And I'm sure everyone has had that figure, right? In a way, maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, maybe someone formally that's coaching you. Who guide you, and how did that shape your immigration?
I would say my parents guided me, and it shaped my migration in the sense that there was a tug of war. Because remember that I hadn't lived with them in a long time. I'd been living by myself. I wasn't used to even living with them. I had my own habits that they, of course, did not like,
Yeah, so, usually it goes like that.
Yes, it usually goes like that. And I'm at this point where I don't want to be taking instruction from anyone. I just want to do my own thing, right? But now we're living in the same house. You're telling me, oh, why didn't you fold your clothes? I'm like,
Let me do my stuff, right?
But of course, and that has its pros and cons, because my parents love me, no doubt. I'm their baby, also the last child. So, and in an African setting, you're a baby. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 58, you're the baby, right? And they will treat you as such. So I think a lot of time was spent in a situation of, if you tell me to do this, I will do the opposite. Like reverting back to teenage years.
Yeah.
I feel like I wasted some time doing that.
Yeah.
They also were coming from the time of, I'm a creative, I've always been. My parents always wanted me to go to law school. That was always the plan, even though I wasn't
conservative, more conservative.
Yes, even though I wasn't like fully with the plan. I knew I wanted to work in radio or TV. I knew I wanted to write. I had been in radio writing for a while. I'd done all kinds of things. But of course, they were not having that. They're like, we don't know anything about that kind of life. We just want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, right? That was it for them. So when I came, I wanted to do what I loved. I'm not in Nigeria now. I'm in America where things like this are normal. So I want to do what I like. But of course, for them, it's like, no, our friends' kids do this. So
Right.
you
Like,
also have to do this.
something normal.
Exactly. Get a real career. And so I think we spent some time, you know, and I feel like if you grow up in a setting where it's very important that people give you a thumbs up, to be able to shift completely into a place where you give yourself the thumbs up and you're like, I don't care about any other person's thumbs up as long as I'm good. That shift to maybe an American kid or a British kid who grew up like the regular way, it's nothing to them. But to us and to the community where I grew up, you could be segregating your entire family, just making that decision. Because on their end, they're like, you're selfish and you're ungrateful because we've given you all of this opportunity. And then this is what you want to do with it. But on your end, you want to say, let me just do what I feel like I'm called to do. Yeah. And you see the results. Can we wait for the results? Right? Yes. Yeah. But for them, and my parents are so hardworking, great work ethic, very responsible. I come from a Christian family. People that will never miss a day of work in their lives. You know, people that always want to build the community, don't joke with voting, want to just do the best. And then you are acting like some, right? So you can only imagine, you know, how it was.
And you were going through your own process too. Like, I'm sure everyone was adapting to the new country and everyone was adapting to the new style, the new lifestyle, and how are we going to be living here? And for what you're saying, I'm hearing that you saw coming to the US as an amazing opportunity to say, okay, now I can be free and try to do things that maybe weren't that easy back in Nigeria. How was that process? Like, were you able to find a path for yourself, more creative, more, different in a way than the opportunities you had back home?
Yeah, so I got to learn a lot about myself. So the difference in my situation is my mom had moved here like a decade before I moved here. My dad had moved here long before I moved here.
Okay, so you didn't arrive all at the same time.
No, okay. That's how I got to be like in my mid-20s here.
Because they started the process and all the paper. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So they started. So of course that's why they came in a kind of like guidance way, because they had lived here. They had their own life. They had their friends. Their friends' kids were doing whatever they were doing.
Right.
And I was supposed to just come and fall in line. Yeah.
And they knew how things work because they had the experience in their way.
Yes. And I didn't seem like I knew how things work. To them, they're like, okay, you don't exactly know how things work. But to me, I was like, I might not have lived here, but I know that there is a way things work in general.
Exactly.
Right. So
that's so interesting and so unique, really.
Yeah. So today, you know, I do other things. I have the ImmiGreat Life. I have a Tuesday live show. I talk about things that are important to me, like I would if I was on the radio. I have friends who we like collaborate to do stuff together. So I think a part of what, you know, different parts of my life fulfill different longings in me. And put it that way. I also work as a knowledge manager. I'm a ServiceNow architect. I work as a project manager. I'm a quality auditor. So you understand what I'm saying? So different parts kind of fit in for me.
Yeah, like you were able to find and different path and different interest and not just one, right? Like and I think in my culture we grow up thinking that there's one path, there's one career, And if you choose to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor for the rest of your life. And you can't have a side project like a podcast, right? Like, it's just like, you just need to move forward. And what I love about what you're saying, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of immigrants that are going to be listening to this episode, is so in that journey, like, hearing your story inspires me, right? Like, you can arrive to a country in your 20s and you can become that person you want. You can create different careers and professions. What would you tell those people that are starting that process? Like, what helped you? Right? Like, what helped you to not stick to the things that the people that were guiding you were saying? What helped you create your own space and I'm sure make mistakes and learn from there, right? Like, how was that, and what would you share to them?
I would say I would say give yourself grace. It takes time to settle into anything. It takes time. Now it's a bit confusing for some people, right? Because you're watching Instagram, you're watching everything that's going on around you, and people seem settled and like living perfect lives. So it's so easy to look at yourself and being like, oh my God, my life is a joke. That's like the easiest thing
Totally. Mm-hmm.
that could happen. But give yourself time, right? Because the goal in life is to beat who you were yesterday. So if you have everything now, like, can you imagine how hard it is for the Justin Biebers, for the Ushers, for the Celine Dions who have like peak, let me not say peak because they can be better tomorrow, but there must be something in them that feels like, how do I beat 8 Grammys? How do I beat
Totally.
10
There's
Grammys?
no ceiling. Yes.
Exactly. There's no ceiling. There are times when it seems like everything's down. There are times when it seems like things are up. Give yourself the grace to just keep going. Be patient. That's one thing I would say that helped me, right? When I was not patient, it did not help me. When I started to, block out what other people's lives seemed like and just be like, okay, this is the goal, right? That helped me. And then another thing I would say is, don't be ashamed of anything you have to do to survive.
Yes.
When you come into this country, you're still on survival mode, depending on where you're from. And, if your father's the president of where you came from and you're like, living lavish, well, that's you, right? The common immigrant pattern is you came from another country, you came to whatever country you're in for a better opportunity. And so imagine how much brain power and survival struggle it took to get you from the country that you came from into the country that you're in. And when you were coming, you were like, when I get into this country, I'm going to do this, right? The funny.
Yes.
The funny part. I know that we're all, as immigrants, you're already a winner, because what it took to get you from where you're coming from to this place, I cannot imagine. Right? And then you have people who will come in here and then that strength just disappears. It's almost like we forget who we were to have got us to this place, right? So I'm going to say, trust your strength that's inside of you already. And give yourself, don't be ashamed of yourself. If you come in and you have to work a packing job, you have to do Uber Eats, you have to do whatever, don't be ashamed of it. That's just your foundation. It's part of your story, right? You don't want to know how many immigrants right now have like crazy businesses, crazy companies. You hear how they started, you would be amazed.
It's true.
So that's another thing I want to share.
I love it. It's part of our stories. Like, I think that's so powerful because it makes me think on the things that I did, that when I was doing those things, exactly as you're saying, they weren't matching the idea I had of what was living in the US was like, right? And I even thought about, wait, I was doing way better when I was back home. I was more comfortable. I had my house. I had my mom. I had, I have all these things that were comfortable, in a sense. And it's so true. we kind of forget that we were that person that's going to continue to move forward, that's going to continue to push. But because we're in an unknown place, we're like, oh yeah, I don't know who I am, right? Like we forget. It's so powerful. I'm really loving what you're saying.
Yeah.
What were some struggles that you face as an African immigrant living in the US from your experience for us to get an idea, right? For us to get an idea of what was difficult, what didn't you enjoy, what were some of the boxes that people put you in?
Yeah. Okay. So, some things I did not enjoy, I would say there's so many boxes. Let's start with my name, right? So there's something called culture fit, and we don't really pay as much attention to it, but it's very real. There's also something called workplace bias. We don't pay as much attention to it, but it is very real. So I'll give you a bit of insight into what I'm saying.
Please.
So culture fit is basically an organization or an industry believing that this is what their employee should look like. Oh, if we're going to have someone who is a project manager for us, the typical project manager we have looks like this. And sometimes they don't even know that they feel like that. Sometimes it's just in their head. They don't see it, right? But it means that when your resume comes across their table and they look at your name and they can't even pronounce it, you're out. They don't even know why they've canceled you out. But you're out, right? It's also a reason why they would say, oh, we're looking for a developer that can create and a new application for us. And then they would look at a name and it looks Indian and they would be like, oh, this guy would make a good developer.
Yeah.
But it's real. This is what I'm saying. It's so real.
For good and bad. And it's so unconscious. For some people.
For some.
Yeah. Others are very conscious of what they're doing. Yeah.
Yes. Some people are very conscious, Some people, they're so used to it. Oh, I feel like these people who come from this place are very good at this. And so they'll just hire them. And you who has like so much experience doing that, it's like they don't even see you because you don't have a name like that. In another sense, then you have something like work. This is so weird, right? The sun came right out.
Oh, it's okay.
And then in another situation, you have workplace bias. It means that if someone, and this is because we're immigrants, right? That's why I'm using these examples. Imagine I was from Honduras and somebody, and the last person who was, from that country in that organization did a lot of things that people didn't like. They worked a certain way, They bullied people, and then they left, or they were pushed out, or whatever. And then you are from the same country, and then you come in. Do you know that there's already bias against you as to
immediately?
And you don't know because you're just coming in like you don't know anything that's going on.
And they only met one person from that country, just one. Like they reduce yourself and all of what you bring into one.
Yes. And you don't know the drama that's happened before you got there, and nobody's telling you, right? So you are going to have to navigate that by yourself. And so I've met some people who say, you know what, I'm not here to speak for all Nigerians. I'm not here to speak for all Africans. I wish life was that easy. But the truth is, you getting results, you being great at whatever you do, you being great at your business, you acing everything that you're doing and being excellent, it gives another Nigerian a chance. It gives another African a chance. Yeah. It gives someone who comes from a country where there are 200,000 people and nobody has even heard of that country, gives them a chance too. Yeah. As far as some people are concerned, Africa is a country. It's not a continent. They don't know anything about us.
Yeah.
And so they would even ask you, where are you from? Oh, you're African. I've had people ask me, you speak African? There's this African lady. I'm like, what? What are you even saying? But I don't blame them because it's a huge world and we cannot know everything. But workplace bias is real. Sorry.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say that yeah, we cannot know everything. Just want to add, but we can have the disposition to learn, right? And I
Yes, an
think that
open mind.
make a difference in between the
Yes.
people that just throws the stereotypes and just stay there, and other ones that we make mistakes. I'm sure I have made many mistakes on saying things
Me
or
too.
asking things, but then we learn and we go a step further, right? So I think that's just because there's a lot of fear too of like, oh, am I gonna say the wrong thing? Am I gonna? But that's the only way to learn too, if you want to.
Yes, true. So I think those are things that I did not enjoy the disadvantages of, and I just felt like we need to do better, just as human beings. And of course, the racism part is real and alive. I have to mention that whatever platform I'm on,
Please.
and of course, you don't know the extent to it until you get here, because you just don't know the extent.
Can you tell us a little bit? Can you tell us a little more?
So of course, growing up, I've seen cops shoot people without a cause. I've seen like the craziest things you can imagine growing up in a third world country, right? But something in you that makes you want to move to this developed country does not think that you would get there and see the same thing. That's not why you're moving, to whoever's watching this. I'm very sure if you're like me and you moved your whole life, I'm not sure people really understand that to migrate, it means that at some point you would be selling everything you own. They're basically people who sell all their houses and move their whole families. That's like a sacrifice. That's right. So rich. Yes. And then you get somewhere and then you're seeing, just. And even when you have a great job, your family's okay, there's a part of us that wants our kids to see better than we did, especially for migrants. I have 2 sons. I know what it is for cops to kill an innocent person. I know what I know what human trafficking is about. That's all real stuff. But I wish that my kids would not, I wish I did not have to explain why George Floyd was knelt on and choked to death. I wish. But alas, I had to explain that to my 8-year-old. So, I wish it wasn't like that. But it's everybody has to be involved. Yes. And the truth is, and this is a big part of the ImmiGreat Life, right? We're not just here to just come for a better life. You're not just in Britain or in Singapore, in China, and for a better life. It's not enough, because we have to remember that some people worked their asses off for this country to be what it is that you want to move to. Some people, where they gave everything. Imagine if Rosa Parks didn't get off that bus and things were still the way it was. Do you think I'd want to move to the States?
Right. No.
Of course not.
There was a lot of history. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of people have fought and fought and fought for me to want to come to the States. A lot of people have given their life's blood, literally. Right? So it's just something that is very important to me, that you don't just, while you move to a place, you want to also make a difference in that place. Yes. I want America to be better for the fact that I'm here. I don't want to just I don't want to just use this place as something to, it's a land of opportunity, but I want to also give someone else opportunity. I want to be the reason why it continues to be a land of opportunity. I don't want it to die with me, right? So
I love it, and I think in my experience while hearing you, I think it's so important that to recognize those changes. Like, I remember thinking, yes, this is a country of opportunities and it's going to provide opportunities to me, but I don't have any part on it. Like, I'm just grateful to be here, get these opportunities, keep my head down, do my work, stay quiet. and kind of be on the fence on those issues that you just mentioned, on the tremendous, terrible things that are happening right now to Americans and to immigrants. And in a way, something kind of started to feel inside myself as this is also my country, right? And I want other immigrants to hopefully feel that way, like as exactly as you're saying, we can make a change too. The fact that we're immigrants, the fact that we arrived to this country whatever time ago, doesn't mean that you can be part of the change that hopefully we're going to see for future immigrants, for future Americans, for everyone, right?
Can I add something? We are already part of the change.
We are.
We just are not saying, we're just not telling people that we are. We are, look around everywhere. We're serving you food. We are making the food. We're delivering your packages. We're creating the websites that you're on. We everything. Check the lights. What? We are everywhere. You just don't see us because most of us come from places where you are taught to wait until somebody appreciates you.
Yeah.
You're not taught you're not taught to tell people I did this. That's you're told that that's prideful. Yes. But guess what? This is a dog eat dog world. You have, like, I had to learn that too. Mm-hmm. Because of course in my culture, if you do something good, you wait until people say, oh, well done. Mm-hmm. But I'm having to learn, you see it on my post when I talk about the fake humble. You're told that that's humility, but it's not. It's not. If I deserve something, if I deserve to be complimented or commended for something I did, then I deserve it. That's not pride.
It's so amazing. Yes, we need to own that.
We are there already. Yeah, exactly. Really? We are here. Yeah.
So I would love to have this chance to ask you about the ImmiGreat Life, because that's how we connected. That's how I was able to get to know you. And so I would love for you to share what it is, what's the work that you're doing with that platform, and how it's impacting immigrants.
Okay, so the ImmiGreat Life is a platform for majorly African immigrants, right? But I have guests who are not Africans. I have guests who are never been to Africa, but they're all bringing just wisdom and resources that we all need. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I felt really strongly about starting this platform was because I could see that our stories are unique. Mm-hmm. It's one thing. Can you imagine two people, right? And they are trying to climb up a wall. To you, it's like, oh, you're just climbing up a wall, right? Imagine one person trying to climb up a wall, and imagine the other person is on a wheelchair. Hmm. The disadvantages are not the same.
Totally.
Right? And I feel like for us, we need a platform that celebrates us understanding the disadvantages that we have had to overcome to get to this place. Because imagine growing up in a setting where already you don't believe that you're good enough. Already, there's that already, right?
Right.
So I believe that we had to start a platform where we could highlight our wins, and we could celebrate our wins, and then we could also raise awareness to the struggles that we were having. Mm. So imagine somebody coming from a country where they don't even speak English, and then you move to somewhere like the UK or you move to the United States. Imagine, the disadvantage of that, as you cannot compare that to someone whose first language is English. 100%. So I have friends who are from Francophone countries. Those are the countries that were colonized by the French. And so the language, their typical, lingua franca is French. Yeah. I cannot compare what they go through when they move here. Right. Unlike me, whose first language is English. Mm-hmm. Right. So I just wanted us to be, so when somebody like that, whose first language is French, is able to go to medical school and graduate and become a doctor, to somebody else, to someone who's from, I don't know, somewhere else, they might not see it as that big of a deal.
Mm.
But to that, do you understand why I
They
thought
have no idea. They have no idea.
Even figuring out the sentences in the book that they had to read, how hard it was. I have a friend, she owns her own platform. It's also Immigrant Concerned. She went to law school and she studied for her law degree in Korea.
Wow.
So imagine. So I can relate because I lived in Korea before. So even for me, it was like, how did you go to? You must have been number one, the only Black person. The only Black person there, And so sometimes having similar backgrounds helps you to be able to relate and celebrate someone because you know where they're coming from. Right. That's what the ImmiGreat Life does. We celebrate other people that have similar backgrounds. We also kind of share resources. Oh, we need this. We know that there's many things we need to learn. We know that we need financial freedom. We know that we need to learn new ways to deal with family, marriage, because our cultures are not the same. In our culture, women are supposed to be a certain way and act a certain way. And then you move here and you see so many couples clash because things are different here.
Yeah, or raising kids, which you did.
Raising kids is a whole other story because you want your kids to act a certain way. In some cultures, your kid doesn't even look you in the face. Talk less, like they don't look you in the eye.
Right.
Talk less of talking back to you and asking you questions.
They're growing up in a country where things work different than they did for us in our country.
Very, very differently. But so sometimes it takes a group to be able to tell each other, you know what, you need to, are you trying to raise a kid who's scared of everyone? Or are you trying to raise a kid who can lead? Because if you want a kid that can't look you in the face, if you want a kid that can't talk back to you, you're raising a follower. You're not raising an influencer. They will never be able to influence anyone else.
Oh.
Right? So that's why the ImmiGreat Life is so important. Right now we have, and this just launched, we have an ImmiGreat Life group for entrepreneurs and businesses.
Awesome.
And that was because we already don't have the advantage of when you're starting a business and you can go to friends and family and raise money. We already, as immigrants, that's hard because how many family members do you have? Right?
Exactly.
And then you might know about how business is done where you come from, and it's not the same where you live. They're just all of these nuances, and it's easier to get to it's easier to learn as a group, helping each other.
A community. That's how we grow. Where can people connect with ImmiGreat Life? What are the points of contact? I always add it to the description of this episode, but I would love for you to also share it.
Okay, so you can contact us at www.immigreat.life. That's the website. You can also contact us on on Instagram. That's at immigrate.life. And so it's great as in greatness. ImmiGreat, And then and then you can also reach out on Facebook. The group is the ImmiGreat Entrepreneur Network Group. The ImmiGreat Entrepreneur Network Group.
Awesome.
You find
and I'm sure in the website we can find all the info too.
Yeah. So that's the ImmiGreat Life.
It's so amazing that you created that. I'm really glad to be able to hear a little bit more in depth from what I see in the platform, because I get that same sense of what you're creating and the support that you're building with a community. And there's something that I got from your page that was that you're helping immigrants move from survival mode to thriving, right? And that really caught my eye, because we also were talking about survival mode earlier in the interview, and I don't think there's one immigrant that can relate to it at some point in their life or in their parents' immigration. So I would love to end this conversation with a key takeaway that we can keep in mind or start to put in practice to move from that survival mode to start thriving? And I know it's not an easy answer, and I'm sure it takes many different steps, but maybe we can leave the listeners with one important thing.
Yeah. Okay. So what I would say about that is, and of course, like you said, it's so wide. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But we start first but to move from survive to thrive, you have to start by asking yourself why you're even here. And sometimes it has to take a while to be able to answer that question properly. Because when you first get here, things can feel very frantic. Just like you come in with the mindset of why you're here. But sometimes you need to just calm down and really say, why am I here? And not just even in this country, why am I here in life at all? And what am I trying to achieve? Where do I see myself in 10 years? What is the me that I would not be ashamed of in the future? And sometimes that has nothing to do with how much money is in your bank account. That's the weird part, right? Because I feel like some of us are more focused on that, and some of us, that's not what brings us satisfaction. And that's why it's so important to ask yourself these questions. Because if I'm comparing myself to you, Vero, and you're more of, I want to die a billionaire, and if I want to impact 1 million people before I die positively, if we don't have the same, and none of them is wrong, you want what you want. But if I'm comparing myself to you and I'm running after your goal, I'm never going to be satisfied, because that's not what makes me me. So I think first, and sometimes to do that, you have to speak with someone. You have to have a coach. You have to talk to someone and just figure out where you are, what you want to do. Survivor mode, you're thinking about the now. You're thinking about just surviving, but thrive, you're not thinking about yourself alone. You're thinking, how can I impact someone? How can I increase someone else's chances? How can I, legacy, it's legacy. So that's what I'll say today. That's what I'll say today.
I love it. It's so special and so important, and it really resonates with me. It really makes me feel happy that we were able to make this connection, to make this interview. And I hope we stay connected, because I really enjoy seeing what you're saying, what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much one more time.